I'm super excited to be back in Glasgow again, back in Scotland again. You know, sort of been on the road for the last couple of years. You know, the last time I boxed in Glasgow was when I won the world title back in 2019 in May. So I've been on my couple of big fights since then. So yeah, it's been a long old last couple of years with the coronavirus and all the restrictions. It's been a long few years, you know. So I am excited to get back to home and fight in front of my home friends and family and have a big fight back at home again and you know, give them a big night and something to look forward to.
And how do you sort of keep your equilibrium, Josh, when you've kind of reached the pinnacle of the division, you've unified the belts, your profile has gone skyrocketing upwards as well, and yet when you come back to camp, when you're preparing for another fight, it's all about stripping all of that away and kind of getting back to basics, I would assume. How do you ensure that, you know, you treat it like it's another fight and you remain grounded?
Well, I've still, you know, because I've still got goals and ambitions that I want to achieve, you know, and if Jack Catterall beats me or, you know, he's standing in the way of me achieving these and me getting in the way and getting the opportunity for me to reach these goals and ambitions. So the motivation and the ambition is there easily, you know, so I've got the desire and the will to win, like second to none, you know, the will to win and desire to win is second to none. So the motivation and the will to train and that's still there because I've still got other things that I want to achieve. And Jack Catterall standing in the way of me achieving them. So I have to make sure that I get the job done.
Be honest, Josh, does this kind of build up? Does it feel different? Do you feel under more scrutiny? And I guess in turn, I mean, I know pressure manifests itself in different ways. We've spoken to enough sportsmen and women over the years. Some people are impervious to it. Some people feel it and it affects them in a different way. Does the word pressure, do you feel that heading into this fight, given what you've achieved in recent years?
Nah, not at all, you know, because I thrive under the pressure. I thrive under the big lights and the big stage and the big arena. You know, I thrive under that. It's what I live for. I love it. You know, I love the thrill of it all, you know, and I love the sort of expectation of me having to come out and win, you know, the last couple of fights, the last one and the program one, I was sort of, you know, under the underdog kind of thing going into the fights, and I always have been, you know. So it's the pressure, the expectation to win from the fans, but that gives me motivation to make sure that I give them a good night, you know, and a night to remember and come away with the victory, you know. So I don't feel any pressure, you know. I just love the big nights and the big occasions.
Is it easier being an underdog going into a fight, or does it make no difference to you?
For me, it makes no difference. You know, it's a big light, it's a big occasion. You know, if either way, if a victory, if you have a defeat, you know, the goals that you've got are out the window. It's back to the drawing board and taking a step back. You know, so a lot of fighters freeze under the big lights, and a lot of fighters let the occasion get to them. Whereas myself, I love it. You know, I love the big nights and the big crowd, the big events, the cameras, the lights. You know, I love it. I come into my own with it. You know, I like the big event and I like the big show. So yeah, it's really good. I actually found it really difficult in lockdown. I had a fight in lockdown, and it was in front of no one. I found that much more difficult than any other night.
Where does that come from, Josh? I would imagine your upbringing probably a part in that, but where has this kind of natural propensity to be someone who thrives under those kind of extreme kind of pressures? Because, you know, I can only speak for myself. The thought of that, Jesus, mate, I'm coming out in a cold sweat just thinking about trying to put on a show. And that's before someone's throwing jabs and uppercuts and all the rest of it at me. So where does that, is that an innate quality that's just inbuilt?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. You know, it just doesn't faze me. If anything, I look forward to it. You know, and also I think just experience. You know, I've been on a lot of massive stages throughout my career. You know, I've been to 2 Commonwealth Games. I've been to the Olympics. I've been to World Championships, and I've been in many championship fights as a professional now as well. So I've got the experience. You know, I think from like my seventh professional fight, I've been in 12-round championship fights. So I'm fairly experienced in the big shows and having the pressure and fighting at home and the expectation and that. So I'm experienced in it. I'm just used to it, So anything, I kind of need the big nights now. I don't like sort of the smaller nights and with hardly any crowd. I prefer the bigger ones now.
I watched your interview with Max Kellerman just after the Ramirez fight, Josh, and you spoke to Max about essentially being a little bit annoyed about the level of coverage on your fight with Ramirez and perhaps the lack of credit that you were getting from TV companies, executives, etc., in terms of general coverage from the boxing press and the wider sporting press as well. I was curious to know whether that has changed, whether you notice a difference in that, and if not, I mean, what does it take for that to change? Does it take a fight against, say, a Terrance Crawford, for example?
Listen, I'm not too sure what happened there. It was a little bit frustrating, maybe. I don't know. I just really don't know. I do feel though that if I'd been maybe from south of the border, there'd been a little bit more attention on me, a little bit more attention on the achievement that I'd just done and what I was trying to achieve, the greatness that I was trying to achieve. There would have been a little bit more attention on it. But I don't know. I think ultimately, mostly it was down to because the coronavirus and the restrictions of the media that couldn't get out to America and things like that. But the fact that no British broadcaster picked it up was sort of like a kick in the teeth. But we're here now. We've done it. I'm the first guy in Britain to become undisputed champion. I am the Doug's nuts, as they want to say. So the mutt's nuts. So I am the man at the minute, and everybody knows it now. So I'm not really too fussed for it, but I'm not that kind of guy to sort of go out and crave the attention and the things like that. But maybe if I'd been somewhere else or someone else, it maybe been a little bit different. But they can't ignore me for too long. I've done so much now. I've achieved so much now that they can't ignore me.
And in reference to that, does the nonsense that's going on in boxing at the moment, the Jake Paul fights, for example, that are doing pay-per-view numbers when the guy's never fought a professional boxer or even a boxer, let's be honest, does that annoy you, Josh? Does that get under your skin?
Not really, but it is a little bit annoying. You've got guys, like myself, I've dedicated my whole life to boxing. I've went through a lot of hardship to get to where I am. I've sacrificed a whole lot in my life, growing up and coming up in my career. I've sacrificed a lot, and gave my whole life to the sport. And then you've got two guys that that have never boxed in their life before. They fancy having a wee bit of a fight and putting on a show, and kind of turning boxing into almost like a wrestling match and a circus, and it's been a little bit frustrating that these guys are getting on top of these shows and they're putting on getting paid a hell of a lot of money, and they're putting good fighters on their undercards and stuff like that, which is it's sometimes a little bit disrespectful. They're disrespecting the sport a little bit. But having said that, at the same time, they are bringing massive audiences to the sport. They're bringing new sets of eyes, new fresh eyes to it. They're bringing huge numbers in terms of audiences and new sort of fans to the sport. So if some of these new kids that are watching them on YouTubes and whatever that they're doing, and some of them become genuine fans of the sport, then that can only be good for the sport to help it grow it. But yeah, if someone said to me, if I want to be on one of the undercards, I would say shove it where the sun don't shine. Don't disrespect me like that.
Absolutely. I'm with you wholeheartedly on everything that you've just said there. And I wonder, Robbie's right to raise the interview you gave to Max Kellerman. That was just post Ramirez. Have those words led to any change, Josh? Have you seen of more people now that you've kind of made history be knocking on your door that perhaps before the Ramirez fight they were not?
Yeah, I mean, since I got back, the media attention was pretty good. I was up and down to London doing a lot of TV stuff, opening shops, and doing a lot of interviews and things like that. So the media attention since I've been back has been a little bit, it's been quite good. You know, it's picked up a lot. You know, I've noticed my profile picking up a lot and getting asked to go here, there, and everywhere. So that it's picked up since I've been back home. You know, so yeah, it's been good. But at the same time, I'm not. I don't crave the attention. You know, I'm not in the sport to get attention. I'm in the sport to win titles and be remembered as a great fighter. I'm not really too fussed for being a celebrity.
You said aspirations and achievements and goals still very much on the radar. You've unified the division. You're 18-0, Josh. There are names out there that have been talked about, of course. And I know you're probably in very much the frame of mind where all you are focusing on right now is this fight against Jack Catterall. But there are some big names out there. I'm sure, you know, you'd love a fight with Terrance Crawford one day. Is that just stating the obvious?
Yeah, I mean, you know, my longer term goals and ambitions is to become a 2-weight world champion. You know, I believe I'm going to win this fight on December 18th. You know, I believe I'm going to come through it in style. You know, I believe I'm going to do really well in that fight. And my longer term goals would be, you know, to move up to 147 and chase some of these bigger fights. You know, your Errol Spences, your Dennis Ugases, your Keith Thurmans, your Sean Porters. These are all massive names in boxing, and you know, these are all big fights, good big money fights for myself as well, life-changing money, set myself up and my family financially for the rest of my life. And you know, these are goals and ambitions that, you know, I want to do. You know, I want to make sure I can look after my family, but also I want to go down and remembered as one of the greatest Scottish fighters ever to have ever done it. You know, to become a 2-weight world champion and be obviously undisputed now, but the Scottish undisputed 2-weight world champion. That sounds unbelievable.
One man who seems not maybe to be obsessed, that would be a bit much, but one man who can't help himself from talking about you certainly a lot recently is Teofimo Lopez, and he seems more vocal than most. He wants a bit of a pop at you. Is he someone, again, and I appreciate coming back to what Rob said, you focus on the here and now, but in longer term plans, has he got the skill set? Is he someone that you would be interested in going toe to toe with?
I think that's a good fight to be made, but ultimately I think I take up my bits. He's a good fighter, but I think he's a little bit delusional. You know, he's saying he's undisputed champion. He's finished his business at lightweight, whether he hasn't. You know, he's had one good win against Lomachenko, albeit a very good win. You know, you got to give credit where credit's due. It was a very, very good win. But it's the only notable win that he's had. And Lomachenko was injured. He had a shoulder injury. So he's kind of ducking the other fights at 135. You know, Devin Haney's, your Ryan Garcia's, and your Tank Davis's. There's a lot of big fights for him at 135. I don't think he's the best of the bunch there. But having said that, if he comes up and the fight does happen eventually, then yeah, I'm more than happy to take him in bits and give him a doing. Yeah.
Give us a sense, Josh, going up 7 pounds to 147. How big of a gap is that in terms of bridging and ensuring that the skill set remains sharp enough at that weight, that the power output, that the energy output is still effective at that weight? Is it something that's really quite difficult to grapple with, or is it simply a case of tweaking a couple of things and you move on up and you pretty much stay the same?
It's not. I don't think I would need to change too much. I've got the size for it, the body frame for it, the strength, the natural strength for it. What I could afford to do is put on a little bit of muscle and a little bit of strength. I've got a lot of room to wiggle with that. You know, I've got a lot of size and strength to put on. And that would be the only thing, was to get a little bit stronger. And I think I would probably make the weight a little bit easier. It's only 7 pounds. I'm naturally walk around about 12 stone. I've got to get down to 10 stone. So I'd be 10 stone 7. So it would be a little bit easier to make the weight. And I would be a lot healthier and more natural at the weight. So I'd be bigger and stronger, and I'd probably perform a little even better.
So give me a time frame on that. And I appreciate you've got a team, and Ben, who we caught up with yesterday, he'd have a big say in that. But a timeline for you then, assuming that you get past Jack Catterall, I'm assuming you will, and I'm backing you to do just that. Continue to fly the flag for Scotland, Josh. a timeline of where you might look to kind of step up to the 147?
I'm not sure. You know, it's not definite. You know, we'll have to do this after the next fight. It's not definite that I'm definitely going to jump up after the next fight. You know, it's just an option that we can go. You know, there's still massive fights at 140. You know, I've got big fights there in defending my titles. If I want to do that, but ultimately for me to set my goals and go and achieve my new goals is to step up after the fight and spend a bit of time getting stronger, going to the gym, lifting a bit of weights, putting a bit of strength, and you know, sort of build up. So it'd be a few months in that process, straight into the gym and building my strength and getting stronger. So I would like to I'll probably box again, maybe in the May of next year, and you know, just sort of a couple of months and get a fight at 147 and then chase a title fight, hopefully.
Can you give us an insight, Josh, into what you're doing with Ben? We had a great chat with him yesterday, and he's got clearly, for a young guy, he's got such an articulate boxing brain. He's obviously a very, very smart guy as well, and he's done so many good things with so many different styles of fighters as well. I think you were slightly critical of your performance in a way against Ramirez. I think you gave yourself a 7 or 8 out of 10. But what are you doing to kind of bump that up with Ben? What areas are you focusing on? You
know, it's just more concentration. You know, a few of my last fights, I was breaking concentration, breaking my stance, and not using my ring general sort of knowledge. You know, my sort of ring awareness. I was sort of just the last couple of fights, I was neglecting my boxing brain a little bit and just going all guns blazing, going toe to toe. I mean, anybody can do that, but you know, it's ultimately boxing. It's called boxing, not fighting. You know, fighting's hard, boxing's easy. You know, and boxing comes easy to me. I've got a very good boxing brain and ability, and in the last couple of fights, I kind of neglected it, and my basic boxing skills, not my skills, but kind of just the basics that I do really well, kind of forgotten about it. Back to being a little bit more patient, a little bit more poised, and using my boxing brain, but still having that killer instinct and being aggressive and putting the fighters under pressure at the same time. So I believe I had a good performance against Ramirez again, but I had a couple of, you know, took my foot off the gas a little bit. You know, I could have put my foot on the gas and stopped him if I really wanted to. But by round 7, round 8, my hands were really, really hurting. So, and I knew I was miles ahead in the fight as well. Well, I thought it was. It wasn't until the final bell went and I heard the judges' scorecards, which were absolutely ridiculous. You know, I thought Ramirez only won 2, maybe 3 rounds in that fight, and the rest was to myself. You know, it was at times it was dead easy, so I felt like I could just box him and move him around and win the rounds, and I was. But obviously in the judges' scorecards, it was looking very different. But yeah, I thought I could have put my foot on the gas and got him out there and made a big statement. But at the same time, my hands were really hurting, so I just decided to box him and you know, and cruise to the finish really. But in hindsight, it was probably the wrong thing to do. I could have put on a statement and put him out there.
And on that note, Josh, actually, just talking about the 2 heavyweight fights that have taken place. I know you were working as the pundit at the AJ Usyk fight. Obviously, a couple of days ago, Fury Wilder 3 was an epic battle. That was kind of a pitch battle, a bit of a slugfest. Usyk surgically took AJ apart. So, as a world champion boxer, which do you find more beauty in? Which performance do you admire more out of those 2? Was it Tyson Fury's kind of heart and guts, or was it Usyk's kind of surgical boxing dismantling of Anthony Joshua?
I'm not too sure. They're both quite equally impressive. One on Usyk's hand, because of the sheer size difference and the boxing ability and the concentration that he could just stick to that game plan for the full 12 rounds and just box him and move him and outmaneuver him, was very good levels of concentration and focus, which I was impressed with. Again, but I always felt that Usyk was a better boxer than Joshua. He's very easily outboxed Joshua. He's always struggled with people that can box and move a little bit. So I kind of knew that was going to be a factor in the fight. But the Fury fight, again, that had everything in it. You know, it had the blood and glory in it. You know, they were both sort of beaten up. They were both on the deck. You know, they were both on the backsides. Both hurt in the fight. You know, and it had a little bit of everything. You know, so it was a very, very entertaining fight. And the both of them showed massive guts and determination and heart of lions. You know, absolute lions. So I'd say the Fury fight was a better, more entertaining one to watch, but they were both quite equally impressive. I was actually impressed with Wilder's heart and determination to continue for that long in the fight when he looked so tired from so early on in the fight, and he never threw the towel, and he dug in deep and kept digging and digging and digging until he finally got stopped, which was impressive in its own right, because he never gave up. He kept coming and coming and trying his best. So I would say the Fury fight was the better, more entertaining one to watch, but they were both impressive.
Yeah, that Fury bandwagon seems to be getting bigger and bigger with each passing fight, for good reason. He's put on not one, not two, but 3 incredible fights against Deontay Wilder. Are you among those of us on board that bandwagon? I mean, give me your take. Robbie and I often talk about in our show over here in Dubai, recentism. It's a bit easy to start saying, hey, listen, he's right up there with the very best heavyweights that we've seen. I've even seen some well-known journalists, for goodness sake, make the comparison with a Muhammad Ali. I mean, are we going there from what you see? And again, you're a world champion, you know the game better than most. Is Tyson Fury as good as what some of us would have the wider public believe?
Well, I've said it for years and years that he's the best heavyweight in the division for a long, long time. I think even before he started, just before he boxed Klitschko, there wasn't many people that says he could beat him. I was one of the people who said he could beat him because his adaptability, he can change, and he's got that kind of style. It's kind of like where he doesn't know what he's going to do himself yet, and it's unpredictable. You know, it's unpredictable, and he can change all the time. So I've said it for years and years that Fury is the best Furyweight, the best Furyweight, the best heavyweight in this generation. I've said it for years. I've always said that he's the best heavyweight. So I'm not surprised that he's getting tagged as number one, but he is the best heavyweight of this generation for sure. That fight there, that trilogy goes down as one of the best trilogies in recent history as well. You know, it's a massive achievement. He's a very, very good fighter. He's a superstar of the sport, that's for sure.
Do you think he would have an easy night fighting Anthony Joshua? Obviously, there's still a lot of public interest in that fight, despite the fact that, you know, 3 or 4 months ago, it was the fight. It was almost made were it not for the arbitration. And yet now it seems like a mismatch now because of what Fury's done and because of how comparatively outclassed Anthony Joshua was against Usyk. But yet there's still a demand to see those two in the square circle, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've always been on Team Fury on that fight if when it happens. But it's by no means a mismatch. Certainly not. It's heavyweight boxing. It can only takes one punch, and those guys are like horses. You know, it's like getting kicked off a horse and being punched by one of these guys. They're big and strong men. So I think I've always been on Team Fury if that fight happens. I think he outboxes him. Joshua doesn't get anywhere near him with the boxing side. But if it comes to a fight and it's up in close quarters, Joshua is very good at close and mid-range with his uppercuts, his left hooks, and he's a good fast combination puncher. And I believe if Fury got hurt like that against Joshua, he could be in trouble because Joshua's a very good finisher. When he smells the blood, he jumps on you, and he's quick with his hands, and he's very compact and powerful puncher. So it would be a very dangerous fight, and it's still an interesting fight to watch. Obviously, I am still on Team Fury. I think when that fight happens, he outboxes him and outmaneuvers him. But if it comes to close quarters, I think Joshua's the man. It's the better fighter up close. But it's just a very interesting fight. So I would still be, even if there was no belts on the line, it's still a big interesting fight to watch.
I want to come back to you in just a moment, Josh, but if you're looking at that crystal ball of yours, as Robbie says, you were ringside for the first AJ Usyk fight. We spoke to your trainer, Ben, at length about this yesterday. I was making the point that I must admit I've been fortunate enough to see AJ in the flesh a couple of times. He doesn't impress me. The jab for me is... It's not what a Lennox Lewis jab, for example, was. And I think Ruiz, it was powder puff. Ruiz went after him. Usyk as well felt it, went after him a little bit. I wonder, do you feel as a pro, and from what you saw of that fight, do you feel that AJ's got the capabilities to make the adjustments to win the rematch like he did Ruiz? Or is Usyk, simply put, just a better technician and a better boxer than AJ?
Yeah, he's a better technician, he's a better boxer, 100%. Joshua, in terms of boxing level and boxing skill, he's not the best out there in terms of boxing ability. I think the reason he got there most of the time is due to his sheer size and strength in most of these fights.
Yeah.
And his athleticism in most of his fights come through. His size and his strength. His boxing ability is not the greatest. He's very basic. He's always struggled with people that can box a little bit. But having said that, he got there. He has a killer instinct. You know, he has got that killer instinct. When he had his opponents hurt, he jumps on them and he gets them out there. He's a very good finisher. He's a very, very good, strong, big guy, combination, strong puncher, carries the power through with all his punches. So I think in the rematch, if he does anywhere near what he did in the last time, the same, he gets beat again. And I said that on the night. If he boxes like anywhere like how he did that night, if they fought 5 times, he gets beat 5 times. But the only way I see Joshua winning that fight, and I think this is what he has to do the next time, is come out straight away and impose that size and strength. You know, come out, take the centre of the ring, press forward and put Usyk on the back foot from the outset, you know, cover up tight, let him take a couple of punches on the gloves and wear him out, let him out punch him and get close to him, manhandle him, sort of tie him up, wrestle him, hit him on the shoulders, hit him on the arms, hit him around the back, you know, use a little bit of dirty tactics, you know, you've got to do it. It's a fight at the end of the day, and tire Usyk out. And I think that's the way he can beat him, is by using his size and his strength and pressing on forward him right from the outset. Having said that, I don't think Joshua has the engine to do it, the stamina to maintain that for 12 rounds. I think he has to do that, come out and do that, and press him and then get him out there early on by 5 or 6 rounds, or he otherwise sort of gasses out again, which we've seen happen a lot of times.
Josh, you're undefeated, of course. We know that, and Floyd Mayweather made a big play about his undefeated record, his O. He really, you could say that he marketed that. He self-promoted the fact that he went 49-0 or 50-0, depending on whether you count Conor McGregor. A lot of us do not count that fight, but obviously that's impressive. And I wonder to you, you know, having watched Anthony, I think, respond very well to defeat in the past, and certainly with Ruiz, he didn't sulk, he didn't make excuses. He sort of fronted up and he went back to work. He kind of got off social media and he came back and he did what he had to do and won the rematch. Whereas it looks to me that Deontay has really struggled with accepting defeat against Tyson Fury. And we spoke to Ben about that yesterday. He hasn't allowed his ego hasn't allowed him to come to terms with either of those 2 losses that he's now suffered to Tyson Fury. I'm just curious what your own take on that is, having this undefeated record to protect. Is it a goal to keep it that way? Do you think a loss would bother you? Would it kind of really upset your equilibrium? What's your sort of overall take on it?
Well, for me, yeah, I like to win at all costs. I'm super competitive, you know, and everything that I do, I want to win everything, you know. Everything that I do, I want to win. You know, it's built in me. The competitive and the will to win, desire to win, is built in me. I hate losing at anything. You know, so if I lost, yes, it would eat me away. It would eat at me for a long time. But you get over it. you know, you get over it and you say, right, you make the adjustments. What can I do better to win and better myself, and dust yourself down and go again. You know, a loss on your record, I feel everybody emphasises on this zero. You know, look at all the greats, apart from Floyd Mayweather, who questionably lost a couple of his fights anyway, and a couple of his fights, who's questionably got a couple of losses on his record. A loss on your record, look at the greats in the sport. They've all had 4 losses, 5 losses. You know, some of them have had 6 losses. You know, just because you lose a fight on one particular night doesn't mean you're a bad fighter. You know, it doesn't mean you're a bad fighter. You can still come, you can still win the belts back, you can still win, you can still become the best fighter on the planet. Just because you lose one fight doesn't mean you're a bad fighter. It just means on that night, the better guy won. You know, and you've got to make the adjustments to become again and go again and win again and prove that you're the best. You know, so I think the zero is a wee bit overemphasized in the sport. You know, but having said that, it does carry marketability and, you know, and all that kind of stuff, and, you know, it plays a part. But really, I don't think it matters that much. But as a winner myself and as a champion, of course, I would like to stay undefeated. You know, and say I'm the dog's nuts when I retire. I was the dog's nuts, you know, and of course, you know, of course I would like to retire undefeated and say I was the man, but I don't think that it defines you as a real top fighter or you're the best in the division of your time. You know, I just think, you know, if I come back, I get a defeat, I get the rematch and let's go again and I'll beat you the next time. You know, I don't think that that it's overly important, no, but it is a drive to try and stay undefeated, if you know what I mean. You know, it's important, but it's not important, if you know what I mean. You know, champions, obviously champions want to win and they want to stay undefeated, but if you do get a loss, I don't think that there's anything wrong with it unless you're completely outclassed and completely outboxed. Then you're like, all right, okay, he's better than me. You know, that's it.
Yeah, of course.
You've got to accept it. You've got to accept it. You've got to take it as it is and take it as it comes, and that's the way you improve, is by accepting it.
Yeah, I mean, you've got mouths to feed. You've got to look after number one. That number one's your family, etc. I always think of it though as a fight fan. I would much rather Josh Taylor take on the best 5 at their peak, maybe lose one of those, than take on 5 fighters who, greatest respects, maybe journeymen, are not the very best. I think you're judged. At the end, history will be kind to those. Forget the who went toe-to-toe with their rivals at their peak. When you're at your peak, that's how you win my respect as a boxing fan.
Yeah, 100%. You know, look at the gold era, and like, you know, your Hagler, your Hearns, your Durans and Sugar Rays, they all boxed each other and they all beat each other. But the stadiums were always full, and the respect that they guys have got, they're living legends. You know what I mean? The guys are legends of the sport because they fought the best and they never shied away. A lot of fighters nowadays are like, boxing's a business, you know, and it is, but at the same time, you're in it to fight. That's our job, is to fight people and fight the best, you know. And the way I've done it, coming through, I've fought the best that's been available all the way through, and I've come out on top. And gambles that I took, the big gambles that I took, you know, if I'd lost some of these fights, wouldn't be where I am today. I'd be back to the drawing board, trying to come again. But I took the gambles and I took the risks, and it paid off. So yeah, I think that's what they need to do. I have a look at the UFC. Look at all the top fighters. They've all got blemishes on the record. You know, they've all been beaten at some point. They've all beat each other, and they have 3-4 fights. And I think in a lot of ways, in some ways, UFC is a way ahead of boxing in that term, because the best fight the best, and they all beat each other, and they're always in entertaining fights. You know, they don't emphasize on the zero on the records. And I think in UFC, they're way ahead of boxing in that regards to the fighters fighting each other.
Is the mercurial nature of the boxing industry something that we just have to accept ad infinitum, Josh, or will it ever get cleaned up, do you think? Because we spoke to Ben yesterday about this, you know, fight avoidance. And I'd imagine there's a lot of guys out there who aren't keen on fighting you if you were to move up to 147, you know, because they would probably feel, well, you know, this is a really tough fight that I could get another payday fighting a guy that's going to be easier work for me. And that seems to happen in boxing quite a lot. In the UFC, less so, because there's just one belt
just
for one division.
governing body. Yeah. But I mean,
is it too much? Is the water too muddy? Is the question I'm asking. Is it now? Is it a point where we just have to accept as boxing fans that this is the way it is? And as Ben pointed out, we've still been blessed with a lot of good fights this year.
Yeah, we've been blessed with a lot of good fights, and we've been lucky. Well, for me personally, I think there's too many belts in boxing. There's too many organisations. There's too many broadcasters that have got fighters. There's too many different promoters. There's too many different platforms for people to be on. So a lot of these fighters, you know, you like to see your Terrance Crawford, for example, struggled to get a fight for a long time with your like your Errol Spence's and your Sean Porters and that, because they're on different platforms.
Yeah.
And they're with different promoters and they're on different channels and they're associated with a different governing body, a different belt and all that. You know, there's too many belts and there's too many things in boxing at the minute that dilutes it as a pure sport, because there's too many ways of different people making money and different avenues to make money and revenue. All the governing bodies, they push for the mandatory. That's why you see so many mandatory defences now, because they're ordering mandatory defence, so they can take their cut or out their percentage out the purses, you know, so they can earn their money. So there's boxing it's really, really rubbish that way, you know. It's too diluted in that sport. I think a couple of the belts need to go, especially the intercontinental belts, the area belts, your franchise belts, and all that. It's too diluted for me, you know. At least with UFC, you've got one champion, all the best fight the best, and it's thriving, you know. It's massive. Boxing's just too diluted for in my eyes. It's too diluted.
It's what it is.
It's easier for me to say that, you know, because I can say it now because I've got all the belts, so it doesn't matter. I've done it, you know. I've done it, but at the same time, how can you have 4 world champions at the same weight class? You know, in fact, 5 now, because you've got the IBO and then you've got franchise champions and intercontinental champions, and there can end up being 7 champions at one weight class, which is there can be 7 world championships. The world champions, there can only be one. You know, and I think that's what needs to happen in the sport.
Last few from us, because I know you're a busy boy. You've got better things to be doing than talking to us over here in Dubai. I just wonder as well, one of the other things we haven't spoken to you about is lots been made in the aftermath of Fury Wilder. Wilder, not the sportsmanship. Wilder saying, I'm not having you, get out my face at this moment in time. Obviously, he's disconsolate. He's just lost, you know, a legacy fight, as it was called. Sportsmanship in boxing, I always found it a bit odd, Josh, in all honesty, because to sell these fights, it gets really personal. And I can't help but thinking in the aftermath of this fight, we've kind of forgotten what was traded between the two men. Now, I might be naive in this. The journalists who have been around the boxing game a lot longer than I will say, hey, listen, that's always there. At the end of the fight, you shake hands, you move on. Where are we sitting on that? From your experience, have we got an issue? Do we overstep the line and overstep the mark sometimes in selling these fights? And then when we do, should we really be upset if your other man at the end of the fight says, get out my face, I'm not interested in talking to you yet?
Well, I think, you know, it didn't look very good in my opinion. It didn't look very good. It didn't look like you said, no respect there, no sportsmanship, you know. But at the same time, he's maybe just at the time just totally deflated and gutted and devastated. You know, he's maybe just like, damn, I've lost, man. Like, you're better than me. I've been beat. I've been knocked out now. You know, he's just devastated, gutted. So maybe at the time he was like, no, not at the minute. Oh, man, I don't want to talk to you at the minute. I'm gutted. Maybe just not, just mentally, physically, not there, not ready. It's just like, maybe just go away. You know, I'm gutted, kind of thing. But at the same time, you know, it did look bad. It didn't show any respect there, any sort of acknowledgement. Again, I think maybe his ego got in the way at times. But man, you can take it with a pinch of salt. You know, I'm taking it with a pinch of salt. I'm having it with both both sides. I'm seeing it from him being gutted, and finally being put in his place and accepting that he's put in his place, and he's been knocked out with his ego, and his ego taking a massive hit and things like that, you know. So he's maybe just completely and utterly gutted at the time, but he couldn't face it. But on the other hand, he showed no respect, he showed no sportsmanship, and kind of looked like a spoiled brat, you know. So that's I'm kind of two opinions of it. But ultimately, I think he looked more like a spoiled brat, in my opinion. He looked more like a spoiled brat and more just no class, you know.
Yeah, his trainer, Malik Scott, who I think has been doing a lot of the talking for him in the aftermath, kind of said, well, it was an authentic reaction. And I guess when you look at Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor saying horrendous stuff to each other for 3 press conferences and then hugging like best pals afterwards, that's when we, the viewer, think, hang on a minute, have we just been completely duped here to kind of think that there was genuine bad blood to bump up the pay-per-view?
When you go to war with someone and you're taking each other to the trenches and really digging deep and stuff, it doesn't matter how much, you know, you dislike that guy, you've got a respect for him there. You've definitely got a bit of respect for him. You might hate him, you might dislike him as a person, really dislike him. You'll never like him enough to go for a pint with him, you know, go to the bar and you know, but you have that respect for him. You can't not respect someone that you've been that deep with and tested yourself with and tested him. You can't not respect him. You've got, if anything, you respect him more after the fight.
Last two from me, Josh. I've got to ask you about the fact that you're currently 5th, I believe, in the pound-for-pound rankings across all weight divisions. And, you know, growing up, obviously, you're undisputed. You've unified the division. That's huge. That is. You've made history right there. But I always remember being a wee nipper and looking to the pound-for-pound rankings, because that's where you can be, you know, compared to a Tyson Fury, an Alexander Usyk, a Canelo Alvarez. Great pride in the fact that Josh Taylor from just outside Edinburgh, 5th on the bloody pound for pound.
When you do, but I mean, I'm not too fussed about it, but you know, I'd seen my name up there a couple of months ago. I think it was 4th or 5th, and I was like, oh, all right, no bad. Took it with a pinch of salt. But then I got sent it from someone the other night, just before the boxing. I got sent it on my Instagram and that, and I just sat back and I looked at it and I was looking at the names and I was going, Jesus Christ, I remember when I was a kid, when you thought the pound for pound fighters are the top 10, yes, your superstars, your mega fighters and like that. And then you see my name, little old Josh Taylor there, right in the number 5, right in the middle of the pack. You're kind of like, wow, that's me. That's me being regarded as one of the best fighters in the world. Like it's kind of like a wee pinch me moment sometimes when I stop and pause and have a wee think about it. You're kind of like, wow, I've done all right. I'm doing okay. You know, I've came further than I thought I would probably go. You know, and it's quite cool. But you know, I don't pause and think on it and dwell on it. I kind of stop and think and go, wow. But I actually stopped the other night there and I thought, Jesus, like I had a proper little think about it and I thought, wow, that's some accolade to have your name attached to as pound for pound one of the best fighters on the planet, which is just it's crazy. You know, yeah, it did make me feel very proud.
And just as we anticipate you breaking into that top 3, Josh, paint us a picture, final one from me, the next 6 months or so of your career. Obviously the big fight with Jack later on this year at the end of the year, but how do you envisage 2022 and what name would be top of your list to fight in 2022?
Obviously, the name at the top of the list is Terrance Crawford. I want to test myself against the best. You know, I believe I come through this fight on the December 18th. 2022, get a massive fight in Scotland, a massive big fight in Scotland. Hopefully, get Crawford over to Scotland. Maybe get him at Edinburgh Castle or my beloved Easter Road at Hibs. You know, on hopefully, you know, on a prayer, getting good Scottish weather on a summer's night, up at Edinburgh Castle with the castle in the background, all lit up at night, up on the Esplanade, being piped out, you know, big fireworks, and I would just that's my vision that I want to do, and I'm manifesting it, and hopefully it can happen. That's what I want to do. I want to have these big fights, and if I can get a big fight like that in Edinburgh Castle or in Scotland, in Edinburgh or at Easter Road, I could happily retire a happy man and live the rest of my life and be very happy. So that's what I want to do. I want to retire as a 2-weight world champion and go down as in history as one of Scotland's best ever. That's what I want to do, and that's my goals and ambitions.
Tell you what, Josh, Robbie and I would definitely be front row for that if that does indeed come off. Last one from me. I read an article in which you said, hey, listen, after Ramirez, I just want to organise my stag. You've got your lovely fiancée, Danielle, the wedding planning. Where are we at with that? Has the stag happened? When's the wedding?
The only thing to organise now is the stag. Now, I've got the lads that organised with the kilts and things like that. We're getting all kilted up, wearing the full attire. So yeah, we've got all that sorted. I'm just leaving it to my best men to sort the stag do out now. We're getting numbers together and where we want to go now. So what we want to do. So I'm leaving that to them to, put me under torture or whatever they want to do to me. Dress me up, tie me to a light post naked somewhere and leave me. I don't know. I don't know what
rather them than me, that's for sure.
I don't know what I've got planned, but I'm looking forward to it. So most of the wedding plans I've left sort of to the other half to do. She's in her element, sort of sorting it all and doing all that, and I put my wee bits here and there, but ultimately it's Danielle that's sorting it out.